Welcome back to MSP Confidential, everybody. It's Friday again, and I'm coming to you from Houston this week on the tail end of IT Nation Evolve Q1 meetings here. And so hopefully the internet gods will be kind to us. And as I was telling our special guest, it doesn't look like they are traffic shaping my upload speed. So hopefully it holds up and we have a great conversation today. And with that, I'd love to welcome our special guest today, Dominic Vogel of Vogel Cyber Leadership and Coaching. Dom, it's so great to finally have you on. I know we've been trying since like December to get together. And so I appreciate your flexibility and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. We persevered. We made it happen. Looking forward to spending some awesome time with you today, my friend.
Yes, sir. And let's just jump right in. You know, I call this conversation making technical teams more human. And I think this is an area where we're spending a lot of time helping leaders. You used a very specific term that I really thought was interesting, the concept of emotional triage. And so maybe let's jump right into that topic. Why is there maybe the assumption that technical teams are not human, I suppose, in the first place? And we'll go from there.
It's a really good question. And one of the things that I've certainly recognized, having been in the field for over 20 years, is that as technologists, we tend to overemphasize the importance of our technical skills. And that's okay. We're technologists, right? But if I go into any organization and I ask to look at their training plan for an IT team, here's all the certs we're working on. Here's all the technical certs. And I'll say, well, how are you helping your people become truer versions of themselves? How are you helping them with their people skills? And I was met with, oh, never thought about that before, right? We technologists overemphasize our technical skills, and we often underemphasize developing our human skills. So it's something that I'm a big believer in. One of the reasons why I love coaching, and I know that technologists, whether they're IT people, cybersecurity people, when they have the opportunity to grow their people skills, they make their technology skills that much sharper, right? It's a superpower, right? So, and especially at a time right now where there's so much going on in the world, so much distraction, people are hurting, right? Their minds are in all sorts of different directions, and that concept that we were talking about earlier before we started, that notion of emotional triage. Leaders are needing to provide that level of a mental/emotional triage to their teams, right? The technology leaders, IT leaders, cybersecurity leaders, if they're not able to help their people when their people are feeling distracted or unmotivated or worried about other things, right? They're failing as a leader, right? And that's often what I feel happens in the technical space, is that people in leadership positions, they're not often equipped to be leaders. The person who's been put into that position maybe have been there the longest, they were maybe the most technical savviest or what have you. Very rarely is it because they're the best leader, right? So I love for us to be able to equip our leaders of today and our leaders of tomorrow to be able to truly lead technical teams. And I'm a big believer that technology has advanced so much and so far. We can do so much with technology. But if we infuse a bit more humanity into our technology, infuse a bit more into our leadership, that's where the next level is going to happen, right? We're not going to solve next level problems with more technology. It's when we do a better job of fusing humanity and technology. I don't mean AI.
Yeah, of course. So recently I was hearing a podcast where there was kind of a conversation around how leadership has maybe been transitioning from smarts leadership to emotional leadership to leading with heart. And so I wonder if some of this is perhaps generational. Are we at a generational pivot in our leadership capabilities? And are some of the older folks not necessarily capable to really wrap their heads around this leadership transition? And what are you seeing sort of from a generational perspective there?
That is such a good question. I really appreciate you asking that. I mean, anecdotally, when I'm talking about coaching and the notion of investing in your people and helping them, if they're going to be at their best, we have to help them uncover their best versions or truer versions of themselves. And I'll say, broadly speaking, I have more success speaking about that with younger generations compared to older generations, right? And more than once I've spoken with an IT leader or CIO who is of an older generation. I'll talk about the notion of coaching. And this is a true story. One of them said, coaching, why would I throw my money away when I can buy another tool instead? thought, well, buying another tool, that's sort of part of the problem that we're in. But does that mean that everyone in that generation is of that ilk? No, right? But where what I've definitely seen, especially like I said with coaching, and it doesn't surprise me being in an era of increased polarization, is that there are those who believe in the power of coaching. And there's those who believe in the power of unleashing that potential in their people. Those leaders, they struggle to be able to invest in their people because they're constantly in meetings, right? And that's how I have actually many of my coaching clients. I don't have to convince them of the power of coaching. They believe in it. They want to do it. They don't have the time for it. So I say, Dom, I need you to coach my direct reports. I need you to coach my people, help them go down their path, to keep developing their empathy, their communication, their human skills. Great. The other camp is those that don't believe in the power of coaching, right? They think that, again, people are assets, people are not people, and they're from a different leadership. They're from a different leadership era, right? And I don't find any middle ground. And again, I've now come to appreciate that I'm not in the business of trying to convince someone in the power of coaching. Like I said, there are those who believe in it, and there are those who don't. Yes, there are generational differences. I will absolutely state that, but like I said, I don't want to overgeneralize that either, but that is certainly one of the elements. And I really believe that this whole this empathetic leading with heart concept or era is certainly, I'll say, being ushered in by younger generations, right? So I find it to be a very exciting time, because I think that's how we're going to unearth a whole new level of potential in our people, whole new level of potential in our teams, is by, like I said, seeing them as people, investing in them as people, right? And that to me is a whole other level of potential that we have just not tapped into.
Now, I think as people in technology, we tend to maybe over-rotate into pattern and pattern recognition and things like this. And I'm curious from your perspective if perhaps you see some of the patterns emerging in when you start working with companies, organizations on the training component, the human leadership, if you will. If there's maybe a baseline that you could call a best practice, or if it's truly bespoke in every single situation, because like every situation is just that unique. And so I'm curious, if an organization is wondering, I'd love to spend more time, training my people or helping them manage some of their emotional triage and such. Is there a baseline where they can start, you think?
You're hitting me with all these good questions. And I'll say that my approach to this is that I believe in the power of individualized coaching, right? Not to say that you couldn't get them to a baseline. It's like, some coaching programs are, here's these series of videos, right? Here's the things you're going to work on, and it's not customized. What I'm a big believer in, and not to say that the other part isn't right, but the area where I feel at least I'm having the most impact is taking that customized, individualized approach. In that, I really believe that most people just need, especially in the IT space, they need someone to be able to either be an accountability partner, or they need someone to believe in them, right? And that every single person that I coach, whether it be individually or through an organization, and I'm coaching that person individually, it is really to understand where they are in their point in time. Where are they in their journey right now? What is it that they're struggling with? Where is it that they could be going? Where is it that they want to go, right? Each of those problems is not necessarily unique, but it's unique to them in their journey, right? And being able to, like I said, provide what I believe in providing safe psychological spaces to these people to explore different dimensions about themselves, to explore what's possible, right? And often, like I said, as it's hard, even if not as technologists, even just broadly, like men as in general, they often struggle to be able to say, yeah, this is where I want to explore. This is what I want to be able to look at, right? We tend to hold those things in, or worse, they stay in our heads and they just rattle around like ricocheting like a game of pinball.
Sure.
Through individualized coaching, by providing this safe psychological space, we're able to explore the unknown. We're able to help them lean into the unknown, right? And to explore those different dimensions. And that to me is only achieved through individualized coaching, right? That to me is so to your point, could you bring up to a baseline? Yes, and there's no shortage of great coaching programs that run people through things, series of videos. Sure, absolutely. But like I said, to truly unearth the value of your people, to help them realize truer versions of themselves, they need that individualized support as an accountability partner, or as, like I said, that cheerleader who's rooting them on.
Yeah, you mentioned accountability, and that's a critical piece. Especially, I feel it more when I'm at some of the events like this week, where I'm at IT Nation Evolve, which is the peer group organization of ConnectWise. Because a lot of the peer group mentality is really about that peer accountability primarily. And it's interesting because I feel like there are maybe levels or a spectrum of commitment to the various aspects of the relationship with your peers in that sense. And I feel like maybe there's a little bit of a parallel to training and coaching. Like you might feel like you could use the help, but maybe you don't believe in it entirely, but you're kind of willing to try it. Or maybe you come into the relationship with a little bit of an idea of what you're looking for. And so I guess my question, to go from abstract to maybe more concrete, is whether you find that people come into your coaching programs and are looking for somebody to be extremely prescriptive in the methodology and the approach, or if they kind of come in wanting to take the lead. Because, the reality is leaders sometimes are those aggressive, and I mean that in the positive sense. They're kind of driving the
Yep.
conversation and the need, so to speak.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that dynamic.
I, I, and I'm hopeful I'm going to answer your question here. And I'm not trying to sound like a politician, but I am going to, if you indulge me here with a bit of a story. So, one of my favorite talks that I give at from technical audiences. And last year I had the opportunity to speak at quite a few technical conferences. The talk I gave was called "How to Unleash Your Inner Leader," right? And at one conference in particular, where I gave as the closing keynote, I focused on this notion of leadership. And to me, the foundational principles of leadership are rooted around kindness, empathy, and vulnerability. And in that, I sort of laid out how you build out leadership from that. And from this one talk in particular, a longtime CAO reached out to me, and he said, "Dom, your talk gave me a lot to think about." He said, "I've been a CIO for 20 something years. The company I'm part of is going through another merger, M&A, going from sort of being a smaller fish to now being a really big fish. I'm sort of feeling like I've lost my way and lost my leadership way. Not really sure what direction to go in." Again, this is someone who is an extremely, to your point, an aggressive leader. In terms of that, he has that intrinsic motivation. He has that fire. He knows where he wants
Mm-hmm.
to go, but he was feeling lost. And when we start up our coaching sessions, I always say, the first question I ask when I start coaching someone is, how can I provide the best value to you? What direction do you want to go in, right? Though that answer to that question will help me determine whether or not that person does have that
Sure.
fire in them, or if they genuinely are lost, then I'm going to take a different tactic in terms of how I'm coaching them and supporting them. So with this particular person, like I said, he had that good intrinsic motivation in him. He said, I don't know where to go. I don't know if I should be focusing on helping my team. My team keeps growing. I don't know if I should be focusing on relationships. And so where I focus my conversations with him, something that I bring forward generally in a lot of my coaching sessions, is what is it that professionally sets your soul on fire? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially for people who've been working for 20, 25, 30 years. And again, this guy been working for 30 plus years. He had been the CIO for 20 something years. So he's been doing this for a long, long time. He's been working practically as long as I've been alive. And when I asked that question, he said, "I haven't thought about that." But he said, "I've been feeling this thing inside me where I feel like I'm losing myself." And I said, "Yeah, you know what? That's a concept that I refer to as your heart turns into a corporate gargoyle." This is someone who had worked with a sort of small organization, had that small, like you knew everyone in the office, that type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. And all of a sudden it went into this big corporate setting. And that's when he started getting lost. I said, when people go into these big companies, sometimes you feel that flame going out, right? And it's like, I coined the term sort of corporate gargoyle, and your heart becomes a stone. He said that's exactly what it feels like. And so when we centered our conversation around, well, what is it that sets that flame on fire? What is it that keeps that flame going? Right? And he said, I never thought about it that way. Right? So we went down this path of this notion of what professionally sets your soul on fire. And where he's come to realize is that for right now, what the thing that he loves the most is helping his people. He said, I'm not going to worry about all the conflicting priorities or the things that my bosses are yelling at me or whatever. He said, I get the most professional joy out of helping my people become better versions of themselves, helping them achieve their goals.
I love
right? That. And it was, again, through a conversation that we had. I think I ended up coaching him for probably about 3 months. And then he's like, you know what? I'm in a good spot now, Dom. Thank you. And that, to me, like I said, is why well, back to your earlier question, why I don't believe in the set program coaching approach. It needs to be customized. And to your point there around, those people who have that flame in them, that flame can come and go, just like any flame can be extinguished. So to me, it's about asking the questions that stoke those flames. So I'm hoping I answered your question.
I think again, it's maybe the point of saying something that triggers some curiosity for people to think about that further. And along those lines, a question I have is, and I find there's parallels about this in many aspects of being in IT or in technology, is that I think as our careers progress, there's a natural tendency with the growth of the organization that practitioners transition out of practicing in many ways. And so the fire that was once a technical fire, a technical skills fire, something that was, knowledge driven in many ways, kind of transitions to be maybe more people centric, or the fire kind of moves to the personal realm of that individual's life. And so I guess maybe there's not a question here, but other than, have you noticed some patterns around that shift or evolution in people's focus?
100%. I tie a lot of my LinkedIn content. And just quick plug, if you're not following me on LinkedIn, please feel free. I believe in sharing daily inspiration, daily levels of kindness. I actually never post about cybersecurity, but yet I'm considered a cybersecurity influencer. But to me, that whole notion is understanding that we are evolutionary creatures, and as such, we should evolve. And I'm a big believer in what I refer to as constantly reimagining your future. And it's okay. The things that motivate you and inspire you today, they don't have to be those same things that motivate you and inspire you tomorrow or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I think even back about my own career arc, I was deeply, deeply technical when I started my career. I love that stuff. About 7-ish years in, I was like, I actually don't really enjoy this anymore. I started looking more around management and embracing leadership and looking at those types of roles. I really started to enjoy doing that. My whole first 10 years, my trajectory was trying to become a corporate CISO, right? Staying in corporate. I got there and I burned out. I became an entrepreneur. When I started out my career, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. I could barely spell the word. I never even entertained the thought of ever becoming an entrepreneur. And then there I was 10, 11 years into my career, and I was like, I'm going to become an entrepreneur, right? And then as an entrepreneur, I've gone through reimaginations as well. I started off thinking, I'll just do independent consulting work. No, I got bored of that. Then I thought, no, I'm going to try and build out a consulting company. Tried that with a business partner. Energies weren't aligned. Tried something else. The current reimagination, the things that back to my earlier point, the things that professionally set my soul on fire, there's 3 of those things. One is the fractional CISO work. One is doing the coaching work, and the other one is speaking, being a professional speaker. Those are 3 things that give me the greatest professional joy. So everything that I do is rooted around one of those 3. And if it's not, I say no to it because it's not aligned with those energies. And again, that's where I am right now. Maybe 5-10 years from now, maybe I'll be doing something else, right? Maybe I'll opening up a laundromat. I don't know, right? But the point is that it's around reimaginations, right? And for me, the biggest hurdle for me was that so much of my personal identity was wrapped up in my professional identity. When I burned out in corporate, I thought, well, at that time, I was like, I don't love what I do. What am I going to do? Who am I, right? All I thought I was capable of was doing security work. And one of my longtime friends, longtime mentor, he said to me, Dom, you are so much more than what you do. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I thought, wow, that's really amazing. And that's why to date, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, my about section, I don't talk about what I do. The focal point of my when I talk about or what I talk about is who I am. And I'm a big believer that if you lead with that, if you lead with who you are, what you do is largely inconsequential, right?
Mm.
But if you connect with people in a way that resonates and you're connecting in a deep, visceral way and forming deep, meaningful relationships, the what you do will come out naturally. And since you've established that trust, you've established that unbreakable bond by talking about who you are first, the what you do piece can just naturally flow from there.
I love how you're positioning this because, and I'm going to bring up a term that you've described yourself as in the past. I think in technology, there's maybe an interesting sublayer of cynicism and negativity. And this tends to be something that I recently started equating to this idea of the shared constraint. Trevor Noah was talking about this in an interview with Simon Sinek, and I really thought the concept was interesting because people tend to feel good about community when they share a similar constraint. But the term that you used was that you were a positive troll. And so talk to me a little bit about maybe the shift or maintaining the ability to stay out of that sublayer of cynicism, which I think is very present in our industry, right?
It's extremely prevalent in our industry, and so I'll say part of it is a matter of self-preservation and coping skill as well.
Mm.
In that, when I burned out in corporate, I was extremely jaded, extremely cynical, and pretty much everything out of my mouth was sarcastic, to the point that my wife said, "I don't even recognize you anymore." Right? She's like, "You're always so positive. Like, you come home so negative, so not you." And that was like getting a wet towel slapped in my face, right? Like, you were, when you're in it every day, you don't recognize it until someone says that to you.
Yeah, shakes you.
And it shook me to my core. It absolutely shook me to my core. And when I left, I became an entrepreneur. I thought, okay, well, I don't know anything. All I know is security. And then I thought, okay, well, I need to learn business. I need to learn how to do reach outs. I need to learn how to do sales, marketing, all that stuff. And I tried doing it, what I'll say, the traditional way, the old, in terms of sales, and trying to reach out and drum up work, and it got me nowhere. Right, using tools like LinkedIn Premium, Sales Navigator, all that stuff got me nowhere. It was around 7 years ago when I thought, no one likes being sold to. What if I completely flip this on its head and try and lead with something that we all like? What if I just try to reach out just as a friend? What if all I offer is friendship, right? What if I just start giving rather than being a taker? What if I focus on the concept of giving? Give, 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 give. How can I make someone's day brighter? How can I make someone's day kinder? What can I do to help someone in their life? So I use LinkedIn as my main engine. I embrace this whole notion of being a positive troll, because at that time, and it's only gotten worse since, I saw so much negativity, so much negative trolling. I thought, trolls aren't bad. I like trolls. I had troll toys growing up. They were cool. I'm going to change that. I'm going to say that I'm going to say that trolls, not all trolls are negative. I'm going to take back the term troll and turn it into positive trolling. So that's what I did, just trying to drop random notes of kindness on people's LinkedIn pages, telling them to keep doing what they're doing. I love creative wordplay, coming up with all sorts of zany words just to bring a random smile to people's face. And I've consistently done that for 7 years. And when I stopped, and this was actually one of my LinkedIn posts the other day, when I stopped treating, my life changed forever when I stopped treating LinkedIn as a sales tool and I started treating it as a friendship finder. By doing that consistently and showing up as a giver day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, it transformed my life personally, professionally. It manifested friendships, opportunities, things that my mind could not even conceived 10 years ago. Brought me opportunities and all sorts of untold magic that, like I said, my mind just couldn't wrap itself around, and all because I focused on being a giver. And the other day, someone that I've been supporting for years, she's been trying to grow she's out in Alberta growing a business where she's trying to encourage people to be more active, and she's trying to reach out to business professionals. She and I have actually never talked, but I saw her post, and I've been supporting her probably for about 3.5 years. And she wrote the kindest post the other day talking about me, and she was talking about how there were days where she would post and there was no one would comment on it, but she would see my comment and she would keep going, right? And she would see a post where there was nothing, she'd see my comment and she'd keep going, to the point now where she has an awesome business. It's growing, it's thriving. And she said, it's because you didn't give up on me. And she said, I never even talked to you before. We have so much power as humans, right? The most amazing superpower is power of kindness. And in this day and age where we seem to have truly lost it, that to me is been the super fuel that has changed my life, that has grown my business, but more importantly has transformed my life and brought more amazing human beings into my life, people like you, that I would not have had the opportunity to meet otherwise had I not super fueled my business with kindness and by being a positive troll.
I love that, man. What a powerful statement. And it kind of begs bringing back the topic of making technical teams more human, because in many ways this is kind of like a magic trick, really. It has like this interesting effect on your teams, on the customers, on all your engagements, when suddenly the premise of the relationship is rooted in positivity and rooted in giving and kindness, and so maybe you've correlated this in your travels to how teams actually bond better and work better. But tell me your own opinion.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. And again, the other thing that I often equate it to is the power. I'm a big believer in branding. And IT or cybersecurity or whatever the technology team is, it has a brand. Right? Not all brands are external facing. Branding is also is incredibly powerful internally in an organization. Right? And just to illustrate a point, longtime friend of mine, CIO, he reached out to me. He said, "Dom, we have a huge brand issue here with IT." Right? He'd just been dropped into this organization, started as a CIO. He said, "People hate the IT team here. Absolutely despise them. Couldn't hate them more." I said, okay. Well, I said, often the starting point for the brand with IT is often with an internal help desk or service desk.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me more about them? And he said, yeah, good people, technically extremely astute. They don't realize they're a bunch of condescending jerks, though. I said, okay. I said, well, I want to experience that for myself. And so I called in, trying to be an employee there, and took some notes as I was talking with them. And yeah, they were extremely condescending, but they could tell it they were competent though. And so I thought, okay, well, let's unpack this more. And so I said to my friend, I said, well, give me 3 months here. Let's rate the brand where you believe it is right now, and give me 3 months to work with the help desk team. And so I had the opportunity to meet and work with the help desk team. And rather than saying, oh, you guys suck, it was more along the lines of, okay, tell me about your experience when someone calls you. What are the emotions that you feel, right? Do you feel frustrated? Do you feel pissed off? What is it that you feel, right? And then we would collaboratively work on the whole notion of the experience. What is it that you want to feel at the end of the call? What is it that you want an employee, your colleague, to feel at the end of a call when someone reaches out to you, right? And when we went through that as a discussion, then we were able to explore areas like empathy. We're able to explore areas like, if you say something this way, how do you think someone might interpret that if they've never met you before? Right. And having so many of these light bulb moments and having these discussions and dialogue, it led to the help desk team being truly revamped. Right. That experience changed. And when we measured the brand 3 months later, the brand was going up, significantly up. People were no longer, holding their nose and be like, oh, I can't believe we have to call the IT team. They were able to start calling. They were able to start having relationships. And one of the key points that we even started with, which was, it may seem simple, was having the help desk team start by, when they pick up the phone, saying their name. they didn't say their name when they picked up the phone. They would just say, "Yeah, how can I help you? Or what do you need?" Right? By making it personal, by trying to form a connection, right? By asking the person, "How's your day?" or where, or not just jumping straight to the problem. Um, Forming a dialogue, because again, at the end of the day, these were colleagues, right? These weren't people that you were going to talk to once, right? These were colleagues in your organization. Building that human bond, it allowed them to feel greater purpose in their call. And the help desk team said, yeah, now that we feel less rushed, having to just look at this in a less humane way rather than calling it a ticket, it was here's whom I'm helping. I'm helping Bill. I'm helping Sam. I'm helping Heather, right? The humanization of it had such a deep impact, not just on their experience, but on the experience of those calling in, right? And that lifted the brand of IT. So to your earlier question, what can I equate it to? The brand power of IT is something I often equate it to, because as that brand goes up, the CIO, IT director, whomever, they can better leverage that brand. They're going to have more easier way of having conversations with other department heads or with the board or with executives. If your brand power sucks in your organization, well, guess what? Your level of influence or circle of influence is going to be greatly constrained.
So my mind's kind of being blown right now, and not because the concepts, not because the concepts are so powerful, but more interestingly, in because of how maybe surprised I am that this feels less obvious than perhaps it should be. And I don't know, maybe there's like a lot of the IT people perhaps live on the edge cases of the majority, where like, maybe they feel like, oh, that's a little too woo-woo, to use one of my friends, Nigel's terms, and can't seem to come across to this softening perhaps. And I don't know, I'm kind of struggling to even articulate the question here, but is there like a discovery process that you find people sort of go through in this just open conversation about it? I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, and I just had never thought about it that way before.
Yeah, I'd say that there's a certain level, I'll say, of enlightenment that needs that happens that needs to happen before someone reaches out to me, right? So like this, in that example, the CIO there, he believed in the power of leading with heart and by leading with empathy and kindness. He believed in the power of coaching. Had he been a different type of CIO, he would have taken a different tactic. I don't think I would have been successful in being able to convince him of my approach, right? I think back to what we were talking about earlier there, where again, there's those different camps. There are still so many leaders in this space. And I use the term somewhat loosely because they're not being leaders, right? They believe coaching, or what I just laid out there, as being woohoo, voodoo, stuff that's not worth spending money on, because they're not seeing, again, their people as people. So in terms of that discovery process, like I said, for me, it's a very simple question. I always say, how do you see your people? Right? Do you believe in investing in your people as people? If they answer no, or give me some other response other than a resounding yes, I don't bother exploring that conversation further.
Wow, yeah, so interesting. Lots of things to unpack there, man, for sure. I'm gonna have to take a few days with the transcript.
Something to think about on the flight home.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I was kind of going through the process of, what do I want to talk with Dom about, and just in your title, cyber leadership, I thought that was an interesting term, simply because I don't think we generally have looked as cybersecurity or cyber or technology as something that requires leadership's involvement necessarily. It's always, felt relegated to just a task or something, like electricity, plumbing. Yeah. And that's obviously changing with how dynamic cybersecurity is these days. And I think the notoriety of it is definitely elevating. But there seems to still be sort of a transition that a lot of leaders have to make into caring about cyber and technology as part of their leadership mantra or catalog, so to speak. And so I want to ask you maybe, again, I have all these abstract questions. I'm really struggling today because you are so deep on some of this stuff. But tell me a little bit about maybe the leadership transition. And I know you work with a lot of end customers of IT shops themselves. But I'm interested in that leader that is maybe starting to understand why being a leader in the cyber component of the needs of their business is important, and what shifts or trends or things you're seeing there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. And you know what, when I when I f- this new reimagination of my entrepreneurial career, which launched this company, uh, I decided to focus initially on cyber and IT teams because that's where I grew up. Right, those are people where I think I can have the greatest impact. Because, and I remember this from my corporate days, where as I was going up in the chain, so to speak, they were bringing in leadership coaches, and a lot of what they said may have theoretically made sense because they didn't come from the nuanced IT world. It fell, at least for me, fell on deaf ears. I was like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but that doesn't make sense in the
Mm.
context of IT or the
Doesn't apply
context of
to me. Yeah.
cybersecurity. Doesn't exactly. You've never been in these shoes, right? And that's why I thought, you know what, when I'm focusing on with where I can impact the most with my coaching, it's with those people who are becoming leaders in the space, those who are leaders in the space and are struggling, because anything they have felt, they are going to feel, or things that they've shouted into the chasm of despair. I've been there and then some. I know what they're talking about when they say I'm going through this situation. I don't need to just feign empathy. I know exactly what they're feeling, right? So that was why I made that conscious decision to focus there, because back to my point too around uh, having impactful coaching and being able to have this be, so like I said, a highly customized approach. Because someone who may be in marketing or trying to be a CEO or whatever, yeah, I don't know what you're feeling. I've never been there. I've never tried to be a CFO or a chief marketing officer or what have you. I don't know what that feels like, right? But like I said, for me, I recognize that where I start crossing and diving deeper into my humanity and diving deeper into those people skills. Again, people call them soft skills, financial skills. I call them people skills. That intersection is where I feel I have the greatest impact. And that's why I've gone all in focusing on that area, because that's where I truly believe that next level potential is there for so many people in the space, whether they be technologists for a company, whether they're part of a tech company and struggling to connect with their customers. To me, it's putting more human centric, taking a more human centric approach to technology is next level. That's where in my LinkedIn, I jokingly refer to myself as being able to bridge humanity and technology. Right? I feel that with technology, we're going so fast, but we haven't evolved ourselves as humans, as people. We haven't evolved our levels of kindness to the same extent that we've evolved our technology. If you think about it, if we had evolved our ability to be kind, to be compassionate, and to love the same rate that we've evolved our technology, people like Donald Trump wouldn't be
Well,
president. I can tell you that.
different
Right?
perspective. Yeah.
Right. Like we have not evolved in that way. Right. So that's where I feel if I can bring that intersection there and be able to infuse more of, again, kindness, compassion, empathy into the world of technology, that's going to unleash whole new levels of opportunities that we have not even seen yet, because those intersections haven't been crossed yet.
Um, is there something that perhaps people think they're doing well to help their teams on this sort of maybe human experience that because they haven't spent time understanding some of these aspects as deeply as they should, are maybe setting them back a little bit instead of moving them forward? Do you have to undo certain
Yeah.
things when you come into work with certain
The,
people?
it's I know you think you're asking abstract questions, but you're asking damn good questions.
Appreciate that.
The One of the biggest things that I see is it it it's almost like tokenism in terms of leadership, where, and I'll give an example. I worked under a CIO who would always say, "My door is always open." Right? I'm here to serve you. I'm here to always help. Right? Door's always open. The door to his office was always closed. Even if he meant it metaphorically, the fact that his door was always closed, right, showed to everyone else that, yeah, I'm saying this, but I don't actually mean it. And what happened is that the mental wellness of the entire IT team fell apart, right? The bright stars, they left. The people who had been there a long time, they just completely emotionally detached. And the people who were in the middle, some of them left, and some of them became the emotionally detached. But what ended up happening, you end up going from a high performance team to a chronically underperforming team, right? And I'm a big believer that leadership done right, that putting your people first, that's how you get your that's how you will optimize your talent, that's how you optimize your people, that's how you get a high performing team. I look at other areas of an organization, right, and they're all they focus on how do we become more optimum, how can we become more optimized. When you have the conversation with an IT person around how can you be around optimization, they'll tell you about network optimization. They'll tell you about technology. They'll tell you about any type of optimization, but they won't talk to you about people optimization or their team optimization, right? Because again, they've just trained themselves to think about technology first,
Sure.
right? And IT, I think, is one of the same thing with cybersecurity teams. That's a bastion where if we focus on how do we create high performing teams, and like I said, put that emphasis on people and allow those people to be at their best, right? By investing in them as people, like I said, I think we're going to reach whole new levels that technology alone won't get us at.
I think you could argue that maybe some people will listen to this and be like, "Yeah, put my people first." But what does that mean? Like, what does people are hearing a lot about servant leadership, and I think in itself maybe those are particularly abstract concepts. And so
Sure.
maybe give me two or three examples of things that are like is squarely in the camp of putting your people first. That are
Yeah.
maybe go to things that you see make big difference initially.
100%. And it's about having real. I'll go to the concept of around like one-on-ones, right? A lot of leaders will have one-on-ones with their direct reports, right? And it's like, well, tell me about, we can talk about anything. Right? More often than not, a lot of those one-on-ones end up being talking about work, right? Oh, what project are you working on? What are you doing here? What are you doing there? Is there a roadblock? Okay, I'll email Bill, see if we can get over that roadblock or what have you. It's very superficial. I'm going to say the vast majority, I can't give you a percentage, but I'll say the vast majority of one-on-ones are not nearly as effective as they could be. Why? Because they're very work-centric. And even for leaders who say, oh yeah, you can tell me anything, they haven't done enough. They haven't shown enough vulnerability or empathy or kindness to be able to create that psychological safety that will allow people to open up to them and talk to them about something that's bothering them. I'll highlight this with another example. A CIO friend of mine asked me to come in. He said one of my managers is chronically underperforming. He said I've tried talking with him. I think he needs to go. I said, well, do you want? Can I can you just give me 4 to 6 weeks with him? Let me see what I can figure out. Because I said it doesn't make sense. This guy went from being a high performer to being an underperformer. Can I talk with him? He said, yeah, sure. So we set up 6 weeks of coaching sessions, half an hour once a week. First few weeks is around just trying to build that level of trust, build that level of vulnerability. And I'm a big believer as a coach, sharing things that I'm going through, being vulnerable, right? Trying to showcase a level of empathy or kindness, trying to ask someone genuinely, like, what are you feeling? How's your day? How can I help? At around week 4, he started opening up to me. He was telling me that he was going through some marital issues and that his mom had passed away. No one at his work knew that his mom passed away. No one at his work knew that he was going through marital troubles. Right? He was a tight button guy, someone who he said, my dad was the type of guy who said, you don't share your emotions, right? You just leave that with yourself. He said, I'm really hurting inside. And again, as a coach, it doesn't mean unless you're trained, it doesn't mean you end up providing mental health guidance. I could tell, like I said, as a friend, as a coach, I was trying to get him just to talk about it. And we were talking more and more. And towards the end, he started to go see a medical professional because he said, I'm having trouble waking up in the morning. I feel so sad and so depressed, right? But he talked about it. He opened up about it. And he only opened up about it until I laid the groundwork to allow him to feel safe to share that. I said, why didn't you bring this up to your boss? Why didn't you bring this up to your colleagues? First thing he said was, I didn't feel safe doing it. I thought my boss would try and fire me. I said, well, your boss I've known him for years. He's a good guy. I said, well, what made you feel that? He said, well, he's always talking about work. He's never asking. He says, how am I doing? He said, I don't believe that he's genuinely cares about how I'm doing. He said, I just think he's asking about that in an indirect way as to why I'm behind on certain projects, right? And again, so I told my friend, I said, you need to work on building that psychological safety. Your people did not feel safe that they could talk to you openly. It blew my friend's eyes wide open. He said, I had no freaking idea. He said, I didn't realize that. So when I shared that with him, he said, well, how can I help? I said, well, that's good. That's the first thing you should be asking. Any good leader is going to say, how can I help? We're here for you, right? We're for right now, we're your team. We're going to support you. Work that's going to need to be picked up, your teammates are going to pick that up. You need to go focus on you. And they end up giving him a 6-month sabbatical so he could focus on just getting his mind right. Came back after 6 months and he was in amazing shape, right? He needed that time to heal.
Mm. Do you think this is maybe one of the generational challenges from the leadership perspective? The just get back to work attitude versus how can I help attitude? I feel like there's definitely a chasm there.
It is, right. There's the my parents and my grandparents, they were the shake it off, walk it off generation, right? You fall down, whatever, get back up, dust yourself up, keep going, shut your mouth and just keep doing it, right? Keep going, right? And now seeing in the world through my lens and through the lens of my kids, yeah, it is generational. It's different, right? I see even what they're teaching at my kids' school, where my son is in grade 2, and right now they're one of the things they're working on is creating a kindness calendar, right? Things that they can do to just be kind. I don't remember ever being talking about kindness in school, right? Like I don't remember actually being kind until I sort of learned that later on in life, right, as a priority. Right? It is a generational thing. You're absolutely right. Right? Will it present challenges? Yes. Are we going to be able to surmount that in every situation where there is a generational gap? Maybe not. But I was reading a book with my son. There's a series of books. There's the series is called Bad Guys, and it is written about. I think it's a kid's book, but it talks about animals, these characters, the big bad wolf, snake, shark, piranha, animals that we think are bad, right? And these guys, these animals, these bad guys, they change. They say, yeah, the world always sees us as bad, so we always thought that that's all we were ever meant to be. And they, through again a series of events, they end up changing their ways and becoming part of what they call the good guys club. And there was even within this, and I'll sort of equate this from a generational perspective, even within the bad guys, they started having these fallouts where at least the snake in particular said, this is who we are, right? We're not going to change, right? We're meant to be bad guys. We always will be bad guys. And the big bad wolf became just Mr. Wolf. He said, no, he said, I'd rather die a good guy than live the rest of my life being a bad guy, right? And again, it shows the capacity for change. As humans, we all have this amazing and endless capacity for change, right? So I know that we can change. Generations can change. People can change. It's whether or not we choose to embrace that or not and fulfill that potential and that capacity for change.
Well, that's a message to the world if I've ever heard one. And what a great way to bring this all together in this conversation. Like most conversations I have here, I'm left with more questions than answers, and I think this is one of those specific examples where now I'm just going to go ponder more things than I was pondering before. So, in many ways, I'm grateful for that. I think that's kind of the condition I'm accepting and that I enjoy and appreciate so much about life as I get a little bit older. So. Wow, great ideas and great frameworks and lots of really good stuff in there. I appreciate you making a little bit of time to come have a chat with me. I don't know why I'm feeling almost a little somber about the conversation. It feels like part of me has this, hope in humanity is restored, and at the same time, it's like it's the contention between, these maybe negative and cynic parts that we have in our industry versus the possibility that exists, right? So maybe I'm just having a philosophical moment, but thanks for challenging the status quo on the conversation, Dom. I so appreciate you making a little bit of time to come and have this chat.
Thank you, my friend. Genuinely appreciate you offering your platform and your audience here, and I hope there's some good takeaways here. But thank you so much for your time and allowing me to be here. I genuinely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, hang out backstage for 2 secs, and I'll come right back and say a quick goodbye, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been MSP Confidential. I think a lot of really good takeaways from the conversation here with Dom. I'll try my best to put a little summary out on LinkedIn. It just might have a bunch of question marks in it, if I'm perfectly honest. But thanks again for joining us. We're here every Friday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you next week. Until then,